I would come back and say, look, Greece has labor productivity that is substantially below the EU average, which means that unless that can be changed, it will have, even in the best of circumstances, a standard of living that is well below the EU average. Greek wages cannot match German wages or even average EU wages as long as it's a low productivity country. But that's not a reason to have 25% unemployment. That's a reason to have somewhat lower wages. And it's the lethal effects of the euro and of the austerity policies that have made it so bad. I do a comparison now. I'd like to compare Greece with Poland. Poland is a low productivity country, lower than Greece according to most estimates, but it has not had a crisis. And the fundamental difference surely is the fact that Poland has retained its own currency. It was neither loved so much, there was never the vast inflow of money that took place during the good years of the euro, nor the vast outflow. So you should not, yes, Greece has structural problems. It's a low productivity economy. It should be richer than it is, but that's not why it's in crisis. I think you have to say it is highly uncertain. There are no good parallels. The closest ones we have are Argentina, 2001, 2002, which still had its own currency, but it was a very disruptive process of de-dollarizing. That was far more successful, far less disruptive than people think. People imagine that there was a sustained crisis there, and there was not. In fact, the economy had turned up sharply within just 2 quarters. So the Argentine example is relatively favorable. The Greek situation, unfortunately, because of the euro, because there is no Greek currency in existence, would be harder. We don't know how much harder. The trouble is that Greece is faced with the choice between a highly uncertain policy, where we know that at the other end, a country with its own currency has many more options than Greece has now, but on the versus a strategy, the strategy that has been followed for the past 5 years, which we know doesn't work, we know will fail. But of course, the truth is that money is never going to come. The reality is that Greece's paper debts are impossible to collect. No country can do the kind of fiscal adjustment that's being demanded of Greece. So realistically, there is no loss for the Dutch or the German taxpayer in all of this. Now, if it's still
is there a loss anyway, you're saying?
Yes, right. And much of it has already been capitalized. Now, if you're saying that politically it's impossible to acknowledge reality, then Greece must exit the euro. Because if there's no way within the euro system to get a plan that has any chance of success, this is a dead end. What I would have done is in the days after the no vote, I would not have done Grexit, but I would have introduced the parallel currency. I would have gone for the plan B that was in fact had been worked out with essentially debit card payments as simply to keep liquidity flowing to make it possible to operate the Greek system without having to rely at every step on the European Central Bank.
So the Varoufakis, James Galbraith plan.
I would have gone that way. And that would not necessarily have led to Grexit. I mean, that might have opened the possibility for further discussion and then a deal with the creditors that was realistic. And then perhaps Greece could have stayed in. But if not, if they were still intransigent, then I would have gone for Grexit, in the full knowledge that it would be dangerous and disruptive, but the path that's currently being followed is guaranteed to fail. This is not going to work. The public never supports a weaker currency, even when it should. But this has been destroying the center left all across Europe. What you have is that the reasonable, the moderate left has been intimidated by the bankers. And so you're left with only the crazy people who I find horrible on other grounds, but they are the only ones willing to actually come out for what may well be the necessary economic policy.
Am I right in saying that you are an advocate of the states having a leading role in recovery rather than the private sector?
No, on the contrary. I mean, I would call for an end to state, to ever greater cuts in state investment, but no, I think it would actually be private sector driven. It's important to say I'm not a socialist. I do not believe in government control of the means of production or any of that. And I don't actually, I think there are some things that even in Greece the state should be spending money on, but no, the recovery would be about a private sector given a chance to recover because it's not being hit over the head again and again with ever harsher austerity.